Welcome to everyone that's joining us, and I know we'll have a few rolling in here after the noon start today. I'm pleased to introduce Beth Robinson, President and CEO of Uptown Consortium. She will be leading today's session. Take it away, Beth.
Thank you, Brooke, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our final series for 2021 of our virtual best practices webinars, where we communicate with our Uptown stakeholders and others about what's happening in Uptown and some of the great work that goes on here. And just a little bit of background, most of you probably are aware, but the Uptown Consortium is a nonprofit community development organization, and we work in the 5 neighborhoods of Uptown. And we are organized and funded by the anchor institutions here, which includes the University of Cincinnati, UC Health, Tri-Health, the Cincinnati Zoo, and of course, Children's Hospital. And so I'm excited today to have a guest here, a very distinguished guest, Dr. James Greenberg from Children's Hospital. And Dr. Greenberg is the executive co-director of the Perinatal Institute at Children's Hospital. And he's leading the clinical and academic programs for newborn care there. And he's also a professor of pediatrics at the UC College of Medicine. And he has worked in this field and at Children's, I believe, for over 30 years. And for our purposes today, Dr. Greenberg led the effort to develop the critical care building. And this is an exciting project for Uptown and really the city and the region. And it's a new facility that Children's just opened. You probably are still taking the plastic wrap off of the furniture. It just opened this fall, and it's a $600 million investment in Avondale, one of our key Uptown neighborhoods. So I'm very excited to have him here today to give us a sense of what great work is going on there and what the experience is like for those who need to come there for services. And we're so lucky to have Children's Hospital in our region. And with that, Dr. Greenberg, I will turn it over to you. Later, we'll get to questions. But for now, Dr. Greenberg is going to run us through a beautiful presentation.
Well, thanks, Beth. You can hear me, I hope.
Yes.
Good. My age, we were kind of technologically challenged sometimes. It's a real privilege to be able to share this work, our work in this format. And what I thought I'd do is run through a series of slides, not too many, I think they're about 16, to give you a sense of the critical care building and what it looks like and what we're doing there. And then, of course, I really look forward to any questions that folks may have. So in this introductory slide here, and the title, these are actually photos. They almost look like drawings, but these are real photos that we just received from our design firm, who was with us the whole way on this, showing you the north facade, the north-facing facade of the critical care building with the beautiful rooftop garden that is located on the first floor. If you go to the next slide. Thank you, Brooke. This building is big, and it's big because we really had run out of space in all sorts of ways, and really run out of space a long time ago. You'll learn about some of the things we're able to do and address as a result of the design of this building in a few minutes. But first, an overview of what the building's all about. It's referred to as Location G. We refer to our buildings here at Cincinnati Children's by letters, starting with the letter A. G is the latest building in the clinical series, and then we have buildings R, S, and T on the research side. The critical care building is about 632,000 square feet, and there are a total of 249 new beds that are located in Location G. As the name implies, these are all critical care beds. And this includes bone marrow transplant, which might not be considered critical care by some, but is certainly in the category of very complex care. And that unit, is, along with our cardiac ICU, our pediatric ICU, our neonatal ICU, and our complex airway program are all located in the building. In addition, the new building has our emergency department. It's moved completely from its previous location and is about 3 times as large. And within that emergency department, we now have an embedded pharmacy that operates 24 hours a day. So when a child comes to our emergency department, needs a prescription, they can get it filled right there instead of going off to another location. The new emergency department also has embedded imaging for x-rays, CT scans, and actually MRI as well. That's all located within the emergency department, cutting down on transport times and improving turnaround time. So the number of actual beds in the emergency department hasn't changed a great deal. It's gone up about, I think, a net increase of 7 or 8. But we have all of these new services that are located there that will dramatically improve wait times and patient flow. We also, in this building, have lots of infrastructure, a pharmacy, laboratory, sterile processing, and so on, that we had outgrown years ago. Our infrastructure prior to opening this building could support a maximum census of about 300 to 350 patients a day. Some of you may appreciate that our current inpatient census varies between 500 and 580 patients a day right now. So this is a vast improvement. And then finally, I want to emphasize that there's new, substantially increased space for patients and families and staff. One of the ways that we were able to support the growing census I just referred to is by cannibalizing space that we had previously devoted to patients and families, as well as staff support space. That is now tripled in size with the opening of the new building. Next slide. So I don't expect you to read all of this, but I wanted to include this to help you all appreciate that this design process and construction process, which started over 5 years ago, involved lots of people and lots of perspectives. Most importantly, families and patients. Many former patients, even a few current patients, helped us with planning and design, as well as 200 physicians, nurses, ancillary support staff, all working with our architects. And we had guiding principles that are listed on this slide that we stuck to in terms of trying to get the best possible design. Next slide. One of the things we had to figure out is where to put the building. And as you all know, the location of this building involved rerouting Erkenbrecher Avenue. And that was, a decision that was not taken lightly or casually addressed. We actually evaluated 5 different site plans and evaluated them primarily from the standpoint of how well we were able to care for patients. As I mentioned, this is a building devoted to our most complex patients. And these patients come from Cincinnati, right down the street. They come from our region, other parts of the city and metropolitan area. They come from Dayton, and they actually come from over all 50 states beyond Ohio, and at least 50 countries around the world. We wanted to make sure that we had the most optimal design in terms of distances, being able to observe patients carefully and so on in order to take the best possible care. And the site that we chose was really based on that. There were other sites, for example, that it would have involved more than a quarter mile of distance for emergency code blue teams to transit in order to respond to a code. So you can see it on its current site here, and we're very pleased with the way that everything turned out. and the adjacencies that we were able to accomplish are quite, have turned out to be quite powerful and useful. Next slide. So typical floor has 48 beds, and it's organized in the 4 12-bed neighborhoods. And again, this is done to optimize care and optimize visibility. You can see the pictures on the right and how you can see down a hallway, and you can see rooms quite easily. But the rooms are also have an enhanced level of privacy for families. Looking inside the room, you can see that the room is big enough that there's a lovely space for families down by the window, as well as patient space and space for the caregiver to provide optimal care. There's also, as I mentioned, team space, staff lounges, child life and therapy space on each floor. So families don't have to go to a different floor. Child life providers and other therapists don't have to come from different floors in order to provide care for our patients. Next slide. So the patient and family support space is worth talking about in a little more detail. We had 29 square feet per patient room, or 24 square feet per patient room in our old setting. And that's gone up to 55 square feet per patient room. So it's a 129% increase in patient and family support space. And now, as opposed to being behind our peer hospitals around the country, we're ahead of them. So I mentioned the rooms themselves. The patient rooms are larger. We have special LED room lighting that I'll go into detail on more detail in a few minutes. And then all of the other amenities that are listed here: exercise rooms, a holistic health room, and really nice gardens. You saw in the very first slide the rooftop garden. That is actually supervised space for patients and families under supervised circumstances. We also have 2 additional gardens on the same level, a rooftop configuration again, one for the public and one just for staff. Next slide. So I mentioned that outdoor space just for staff, and you can see the lower picture there is this a picture of the staff garden. Our building opened on for patient care on November 6th and 7th. So the weather hasn't been totally amenable to using this space, although I have seen folks out there. But certainly when the weather improves in the spring, it'll be, I anticipate getting a lot of use. And then there's a nice picture there above that of the staff lounge. And this probably may not mean as much to you as it means to our staff who had space that was, shall we say, not as optimal as the space that you're seeing there. And then there's also for staff who need to decompress after particularly challenging patient care experiences, there's quiet areas that are separate from these lounges where staff can go and collect themselves as well. Really important, and that space is an example of space that we designed based on direct feedback from our caregivers. Next slide. So this is the emergency department entrance. This is the, you're seeing the entrance for kind of what we would call walk-in of patients and families. There's parking to the left and a lovely lobby that one now enters. Those of you who had experience with our previous emergency department can appreciate the aesthetic upgrade as well as just the functional upgrade. Ambulances now enter in a different location. It's to the right of what you're seeing on this particular view, and separating the ambulance entrances from the walk-in entrance was a really important design goal for us. Next slide. So you can see here the expanded emergency department I mentioned. We now have a very bright and welcoming registration area. And then there are now, instead of 2 5-shock trauma suites, these are the rooms where our most critically ill patients get stabilized when they come in, excuse me, to the hospital through the emergency department. We used these rooms or activated these rooms over 5,000 times last year. Again, I hope you can appreciate that having additional space like this is really powerful. We now have much better waiting areas. The child play area that you see there is one example. And I got to personally test out all the furniture in this area and other areas. It's quite excellent and very durable. And then the picture in the lower right, we now have 5 rooms in the emergency department that are dedicated for behavioral health patients. These are designed in a way to keep these patients safe and also optimize treatment for these young people who many times have to, for various reasons, need to be housed and stay in the emergency department for several hours. Having dedicated rooms for these this really important patient population is a transformational step for us and for our patients, most importantly. Next slide. So we have a very, very strong and lasting culture of research and innovation at Cincinnati Children's. And while this building is a clinically focused building, it's focused on patient care rather than research, we wanted to make sure that innovation in all sorts of ways was incorporated whenever possible into the design and operation of this building. So one example of innovation is that we used a lot of virtual reality technology to train our staff how to function in this building. We had 90 days from the moment of essential completion at the end of June until we moved in the very beginning of November. We had over 5,000 people to train on issues like wayfinding and how to function in a room, because the day we moved in, we had to be taking care of patients in a seamless fashion. We moved 142 critically ill patients on November 6th and 7th. And being able to do that safely and effectively and pick up exactly where we left off required some innovation around training. And you can see in these pictures just kind of what the VR training looked like. To summarize that experience very succinctly, it was a huge success. We couldn't have moved in the time frame required if we hadn't incorporated this. Next slide. So we also put in some cutting edge stuff. This is work that I was privileged to be involved with. I collaborated with my colleague, Dr. Richard Lang, who you can see in the picture on the right, to develop to use the fancy terminology, is a spectrally tuned, time-cycled circadian lighting system for the neonatal intensive care unit. We did this because of research, actually, that was conducted here that demonstrated the importance of a light source that mimics daylight, visual daylight, in all aspects of the spectrum, ranging from visible violet up to visible red, and being able to do that in a way that mimicked sunrise, midday, sunset, and nighttime. So again, I won't get geeky on you guys because that would be dangerous, although I'm happy to go into more detail with anyone who's interested. But needless to say, there's no lighting system like this in the world. And this is gonna allow us to continue our path of discovery and enhance patient care, not only in the neonatal intensive care unit, but eventually in other areas of the hospital. And not just at Cincinnati Children's, but we believe at healthcare centers across the United States and around the world. We're very excited about it. The pictures you see there are pictures that of us testing the lighting system, an early prototype about 2 years ago in a mock-up that we developed at an empty former Walmart store in the Pleasant Ridge area. We used this as a mock-up area. It was another innovation. And just by putting full-scale mock-ups of all sorts of things that we were planning for the building, we were able to optimize those by having our staff, families, and other stakeholders actually walk through the mock-ups and work with us. And also we saved at least $30 million in improvements on design and optimization of design. Next slide. Another perspective on innovation would be making the building itself environmentally sound. We were able to achieve LEED Silver certification for the building. And if you're wondering why isn't it LEED Gold or LEED Platinum, primarily because we opted not to pursue the water conservation components of LEED certification. They are really important in areas of the country that are short on water, the West Coast, for example. They're really very of limited value here at this present time. We've designed the building in a way that we could incorporate those innovations in the future if necessary. Hopefully that won't happen. But still the other energy efficiency features are incorporated and very important to us. Next slide. I'd like to finish up with these last 4 slides, sharing with you our approach to engaging with our community. And this was really absolutely crucial to our approach because we fully recognized, as Beth mentioned in her introduction, that our responsibility to be a good neighbor and really help our neighbors improve and enhance the community was of primary importance to us. So regular open houses were held throughout the design and construction phase. You can see a nice picture of Mike Browning, who leads our design and facilities work at Cincinnati Children's with a nice model of the critical care building. That open house was held at South Avondale Elementary. And then we had a community advisory group of really terrific people who we have been meeting with monthly. We just had a meeting a few months ago. In terms of not only fostering awareness on goals and timelines, but helping us understand the best ways to communicate with Avondale residents and other stakeholders around the construction process. And that work is still evolving. Next slide. Lots of partnerships and investments, not just related to the critical care building, but also just in general, the Avondale investments in other areas of the neighborhood have been going on for several years now with a total commitment of $11.5 million for community development and program support. And then again, I'm not going to go through this whole list of partnerships with those in the community, but there's lots. I called out South Avondale Elementary and certainly Rockdale Elementary, Gabriel's Place, and all of these others are really, really important partners for us in terms of providing feedback. I'd also want to call out the Avondale Community Council, which was a terrific partner for us throughout this process in terms of providing guidance, feedback, and partnership. Next slide. So this last slide is our diversity inclusion goals, a little bit about our diversity inclusion goals for the construction project. The first 2, supplier diversity and workforce diversity, we did hit our goals. They were ambitious goals, but we had 35% minority women owned business participation as suppliers, and our workforce diversity goal was at 26.8% above our goal of 25%. I want to take a moment though to emphasize the Uptown workforce development effort. It's the Uptown, formerly called the Uptown Workforce Development Initiative, now evolving into the Urban Workforce Development Initiative. This was an incredibly successful program that Messer, Cincinnati Children's, partnered with Easter Seals to execute on. This was a program to create real jobs for people in the community who had not had jobs before. So this isn't simply shifting folks from one workforce to another. These are folks who didn't have jobs The program consists of several components. So a work hardening introduction to how to participate in the workforce, and then an apprenticeship and an actual official attachment with a trade. So people eventually had the opportunity to work for a construction company or a contractor as an electrician or a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractor. Our goal was to have 50 people graduate from the program with active full-time jobs. We've hit 49. There are several people still in the program. We're very confident we're going to actually surpass 50. So we're incredibly proud of this and proud to have been a partner with Easter Seals and Messer on this as it moved forward. It is certainly one of the best things that I experienced during my role with the critical care building design and construction process. And with that, I will be happy to answer any questions. I appreciate everybody's time and attention.
Well, thank you so much. That is so impressive. And it was very important and important work and an important project for our community, obviously. And it's very good that we get an inside look at the process and some of the outcomes. And so we do have a few questions that we'd like to shift to that were submitted in advance by viewers and a few of our own.
Sure.
My first question is, can you talk a little bit? I mean, this is an enormous project. It took years of planning, and I would just be curious, did you study other facilities at your peer institutions, or how did you even begin the process?
It's a great question, Beth. Thank you. So yes, it was a big undertaking, and it's gone on about 5 years, which is actually short for a project like this. We had a very ambitious timeline because we needed the space desperately, frankly. So we did engage with peers. We worked with our primary design firm, ZGF, located in Seattle. And why did we engage with them? They had lots of experience building children's hospitals. So I was involved with 2 visits, one to Nationwide Children's in Columbus, and which was informative, although I guess hopefully no one from Nationwide's on the call here. I mean, we saw some things that they shared with us that they said, don't do that. And that was actually very, very helpful. And we learned a lot. And actually we're able to incorporate some design features from some of the things they did in their pediatric ICU. We also went to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and visited the Children's Hospital and also the Hospital of University of Pennsylvania. And that's actually where we got the idea around building full-scale mock-ups and taking the time to do that. The whole full-scale mock-up process cost us in the building budgets several $1 million to do, but they convinced us that we would save 10 to 20 times as much by doing that. And they were right. And in fact, I think I was convinced when we were visiting their mock-up facility, and they showed us how in the original full-scale mock-up, the way that the building had been designed, it turned out you couldn't move a patient on a gurney around a corner in one area. It was just too tight. And they said it had been very possible that they could have built this building before they appreciated that and then had to redo it in a way at an incredible cost. We took that to heart and had our mock-up, and lo and behold, actually, we discovered something very similar in the mock-up to what they had discovered that allowed us not only to improve the design, but also save some money.
Oh, that's very interesting. And well, it is a world-class facility, so I'm not surprised that you invested in that time and the planning and development of it.
It was worth it.
Yeah, and now that it's open, what's been the reaction from the patients and your staff?
So that's a great question too. So of course I thought everyone would love it and be amazed. And actually I would say about 95% of that is what's happened. There's families were just overwhelmed with the increase in space and with the amenities and just how good it was. I had one mother tell me, you know, in our old NICU that we really didn't have any windows that were meaningful. There were windows, but they really didn't look at anything that was worth looking at. And, you know, she said to me, my baby is seeing the outdoors for the first time ever. And it was very emotional for her and very, very powerful. So it's been overwhelmingly positive. So what are some of the things that haven't turned out the way we might have expected so far? A couple of interesting things.
That's my next question.
Yeah. So the one is that, so I was, you know, waxing on and on about the family space and how we made this big increase in family space. And it's been very underutilized so far. Very underutilized. And the reason is that many of the patients, especially in the NICU, but even the bone marrow transplant, they're long length of stay patients. So many of the patients who are here today, even though we've been in the building about a month, were in the building, the old building. So the transition of moving from rather small rooms to these really nice big rooms, they don't want to leave the room. So the rooms are too nice.
Yeah.
And I'm being silly when I say that, of course, but it is interesting. They just want to stay in the room. Yeah. So that's one thing that's been surprising. And I think we're going to give it at least 6 months or a year even before we think about reconfiguring any of that family space. So that's one thing. The other thing that's been a surprise, although in retrospect it shouldn't have been, is that we got some feedback that it's too bright. There's too much light. And again, it's because the old hospital was frankly way too dark. But the transition has been rather jarring. We have these big, beautiful windows in all of the rooms. Families love them, but it's almost too much. So everybody's getting used to those kinds of things, and as well as some of the technology that gets glitchy from time to time and so on. But it's, when people complain to me about some, you know, card reader that doesn't work and so on and so forth, and they're grumpy and so on. And then I ask them, well, how do you like the building otherwise? Oh God, I love it. So that's kind of what we're experiencing right now.
Well, in all fairness, it's only been opened a month. So right. Yeah, it takes time to get used to new spaces. You know, one thing that, you know, we always focus when we think of a hospital on the patient care, but equally important, well, maybe not equally, but just almost as important is attracting top talent.
Yeah.
Specialists, right, to care for. That's part of the care. And so, you know, I read a lot about development and architecture and facilities, and it's almost a given that you have to keep investing in your facilities to be able to attract the top talent. And can you speak to a little bit about that and your strategy for this building as well?
You bet. So attracting top talent at Cincinnati Children's is kind of job number one. That's how we're going to take the best possible care of our patients and families. And one of the core values, I mentioned research and innovation, that because research and innovation and patient care all go together, one informs the other. And the top talent that is attracted to us is attracted to that environment that involves everything that we do. So we've invested in research infrastructure. The building I'm sitting in right now opened in 2015, and now we've invested in this big clinical infrastructure, and it all works together to attract people. So I'm in the midst of recruiting faculty right now, and you know, they see what kind of patient care they can deliver in this space. And they see that they can do that in a way that's going to really enhance their ability to ask questions and then be in a position to answer those questions because we've invested in the same fundamental research mission as well. So I can't overemphasize how important the critical care building is to attract that talent, and how important the previous investments we made in our research infrastructure were to enhance our ability to build that critical care building, if that makes sense. It all fits together. And I always like seeing faculty candidates' eyes kind of get big when they walk in and see, and the wheels are turning about what they can accomplish here in Cincinnati. And that's super exciting.
I'm going to shift gears just a little bit here. I'm impressed by your process to involve the community and the planning and the design. Can you speak a little bit about how you're working with the community on involving with the building on an ongoing basis, or maybe through some volunteer opportunities, or, you know, can you just speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the volunteer opportunities, I'm gonna punt that question a little bit, because I don't want to indicate that there are volunteer opportunities that don't exist. So, but there is through our website, they're right on the homepage, a volunteer tab, and you can go to that, and they're definitely volunteer. There's a long list of different opportunities there that are worth pursuing. And if anyone has specific questions or whatever, send them my way, and I'll figure out how to answer the question. With respect to community engagement in general, you know, lots of different components to it. Certainly, we think that the community advisory board that is currently configured is something that ought to keep existing. We hope it can in one form or another. It's supported by our community relations department, and but I've personally really enjoyed the opportunity to join that board. I get to do things like give COVID updates to folks, you know, about how we're thinking about COVID and so on. Not that that's so much fun, but at least, you know, it's a timely topic. That back and forth has been really, really helpful. I think, you know, going back in time to when we were working through the site, for example, and you know, which caused appropriately a lot of concern in the Avondale community. When we had the opportunity to actually talk to community people living down the street, as well as community leaders, and go through the process of why we reached that conclusion, and how it was you know, it was so important for patient care and so on. It really, that's really what matters, is understanding how thought processes work. And similarly, around things, questions like, what's the green space near the building supposed to be like? We're really working hard to follow the lead of leaders in the community and get that input and make that space right for that. That space was incorporated. It's across on the other side of the street from the critical care building, and it's not done yet because we want to get that design right. I should mention it's also not done because we have another phase of the critical care building that involves renovating the space that we vacated in the current structures. That's just started. And the green space process will be all part of that process as we move forward. But so I think it's been a fantastic process, and certainly I've personally benefited and learned a great deal from the opportunities to work in that way with colleagues in the community.
Yes, kudos to you and your team. It was a very, very good process. One final question, mindful of your time and how busy you are today. What this is more of a personal question. What has been the most rewarding part of this whole process? Because this has taken up a lot of your time and attention. And so I would just love to hear your thoughts.
No one's ever asked me that before. So So I've been at Children's over 30 years. And before then, I moved around a lot, actually. I was in England and Minnesota. And when I came to Cincinnati, I came here because I thought that the potential was just incredible for someone like myself who was interested in being a researcher as well as a clinician and wanted to do both really well. I also told my wife at the time that we were probably going to be here maybe 5 or 10 years and at tops. And here I am. And the reason I'm been here this long is that this is, I think, the most interesting and stimulating place in the world for anyone who cares about, is interested in how to improve the health of children and their families. And that's not just a slogan. I profoundly believe that, and it reflects how long I've been here. So I was asked, it was actually Michael Fisher grabbed me in the hallway and said, "Hey, can I talk to you about something?" And he asked me if I would be interested in being the physician leader for this project. And I said, gee, my wife doesn't let me do anything involving construction or home repair, but maybe I'd be interested. And it was a huge opportunity to learn a lot of new things. So the thing that's been most rewarding is that I've learned a lot about things I would never, ever have learned about. I've gotten to learn about mechanical and electrical and plumbing and how important it is and how it works in a building. I've got to learn things about project management. I could go on a long list of what I've been able to learn. And that lighting system that I mentioned very briefly was an incredible opportunity that would have never come up. And frankly, we could have never done it anywhere but at Cincinnati Children's. To have that, to be able to see an opportunity and say, okay, people, we think this is really a once in a generation opportunity to take the lead in an area of circadian biology and optimize patient care that no one's ever been able to do, and be told, go, do it. That's really special. So for me, it's just, it's kept me young, right? It's been incredible fun and an incredible privilege.
Well, maybe you earned some points with your wife and she'll let you do some home repairs now.
No, I'm forbidden. I won't tell you why, but she has good reason not to ever let me do any home repairs.
I'm sure, and it was probably a long time ago and she won't let you forget, yes.
It was about 35 years ago, that's right, and she won't let me forget.
Yes, I've been guilty of that myself. But thank you, seriously. This is just wonderful, and you are so distinguished, and we are so lucky to have you in this community and here in Uptown. And we thank you very much. To our community viewers out there, we hope you get a sense for the wonderful people that work at these institutions that are located in Uptown. We often talk about plans and buildings and roadways and development, but I think we should spend a little bit more time with the people so you can meet them and get to know. And Dr. Greenberg is a wonderful example of the kind of people and that work at our institutions and at Children's. And congratulations on your new building, and thank you.
Well, thanks for your kind words, Beth. It was really a great privilege to participate today. Thank you.
All right, thank you.